promise not to give you a moment of stillness here. I will chatter. Because that's my job. So, I am Viktoras. I had advanced arthritis by the time I was in my mid-20s. My knees were about 25, maybe more percentage larger than they are right now. All calcified because I love milk. And there was such thing as okay milk, and there was such milk as deadly milk. It just happened that I came to USA by the time they started doing pasteurization. With pasteurization came many problems. And the problems was that it moved the calcium in an inorganic form that precipitates throughout your system. And Dr. Anna Schwartz of King Gustav Institute said over 85% of arthritic rheumatism is caused by consumption of dairy products. We are living at a time when we gotta reevaluate our fuel because it is not the fuel of nature. If we looked at wilderness and nature, they have interesting overlapping components. Namely, they're all in the wilderness living on enzymatically active foods that is alkaline in terms of influence and that is appropriate to the species of the animal consuming, though they're able to consume other foods than what is maximum quality for that particular species. Zoos in Chicago, matter of fact, soon found out that their bills in the zoo could be cut down radically by starting to give them appropriate nutrition instead of the nutrition that was designed by nutritionists, not by nature, that had a high incidence of disease. Our nutrition is designed by nutritionists, and we have a high incidence of disease. About 40% of our children are suffering from old age diseases. The parents, we're living at a generation where the parents will be outliving their children. Something has happened within a period of 30 years in terms of quality of the food, though it started quite a bit earlier. But now it is being highly amplified and highly visible. 80% of the people are on some sort of therapeutic disease management drugs. More and more people are, like in the old days, they got on their knees and they prayed and asked for the answer. Now we get on the keyboard and Google up for our answers. Ask and it shall be given. Now, it's up to you to decipher from the thousands of different possible answers which is one correct. And where do you find the rightness? You go back to nature. In nature, they do not cook food. Their food is enzymatically packed. And after this dissertation, you will agree with me that enzymes should be on the recommended daily allowance with the essential vitamins, essential minerals, essential amino acids. Matter of fact, even more so because they preclude every other nutrient. In terms of importance, though, remember, the body is a symphony of many reactions. You would be thinking, oh my God, I'm really cool and swift if I could multitask 3 things at the same time. You know, driving a car, texting, and adjusting my makeup, whatever, and still keeping an eye on the road from hitting somebody or other, though I hit somebody or other occasionally too. Now, in the human body, the situation is a little different. It's not multitasking 10 events or 100 events at every second. We're looking at 10. It's a big number. 10 followed by 27 zeros. That's a lot of happenings every second of your body, within your body, in terms of the number of chemical reactions occurring every second. And you know who's orchestrating that whole thing? Well, it's orchestrated by your whole symphony of hormones, but the execution are the blue-collar workers called enzymes. You have over 5,000 have been recognized within the metabolic pool. They are responsible for you sitting attentively here, you taking notes, you breathing, your nails growing while you're sitting and listening, and so is your hair. All of it is being orchestrated by enzyme activity, facilitated. Every aspect of life is a symphony of enzyme interaction. Now, the other enzymes are the digestive, which are very similar to what is involved and engaged in the immune system function. We have an ongoing sharing within the human organism of the enzymes between the metabolic, digestive, and immune system function. They try to turn over the enzyme load to whichever division needs it the most. So, where do we get our enzymes? That seems to be so active and so important. In the digestion, we need about 20 different enzymes. Some are called proteases, they digest protein. Some are called amylases, they digest starches. Others are called lipases for fat digestion. And there is a whole group of sub-entities that break up different blocks. By digest means breaking everything down to something simpler, because your body cannot digest oatmeal in terms of assimilation and utilization until it is broken down into basically amino acids, sugars, glucose, and essential fatty acids. These are the three major components, as well as the release of vitamins and minerals, but the macromolecules that are broken down and released and broken down into simple, utilizable by body form is done by the enzymes in the intestinal tract. Now what is happening, sad to say, is that our enzyme levels continue to diminish as we expend it on all kind of things, like on Twinkies, we blow away a whole sack full of enzymes. We go over Starbucks, we chuckle down on delightful happiness, elixir that keeps you going for 2 hours, like you're unstoppable giant of an individual, yet you're burning off tons of enzymes, you're burning off tons of B complexes, you're burning off loads of vitamin C. You are also creating components which are inorganic and not utilized as part of your nutritional pool. So your immune system has to work its butt off to get this stuff out of it. So enzymes are very actively spent by you. By breathing in polluted air, you gotta detoxify that air. It's done by enzymes. By having polluted thoughts, life sucks. I hate myself. I look ugly. I looked in the mirror. Thank God I can't see. So, I always see myself as beautiful. And nobody dares to tell me otherwise. So, but we got negativity. Negative thoughts, you got to spend enzymes to pay for those negative thoughts. They're not free. They're enzyme costly. So enzymes keep going out of your body. By the time you hit 60, you have about 1% of the enzymes you had when you were 16. Oh. You hear that? 1%. And let me tell you, when you start popping those Karen's pills called blue bottle enzymes, miracles start happening inside of your body, because even though those are tiny little pills, but I have billions and billions of enzymes packed in there. You get these little short guys just shoving them in there and piling them in, squeezing in whatever can go in there, and then it becomes available. They are hydrolytic. They love water and they love moisture. Once they become active, once you hit water. Now, you lose your enzymes that significantly, and the loss leads to all kind of symptomology development. Now, one of the biggest expenditures of enzymes is eating enzymeless food, because you cannot break down the food into something your body can utilize without enzyme action. So as the years go by the time you hit your early 20s, your body already starts rationing proteolytic enzymes, because they are so key to all body structure, activity, and everything else. These are the protein-related ones. It starts rationing, and that's when it starts rationing, it means that your immune system is begging, give me more enzymes, and the headquarters from the pituitary glandular system, no way, you gotta wait, we gotta address the digestive needs first. And the consequence is that our immune, like trauma, like at one time when we were young, we could be in contact sports, boom, bow, bow, bash, and no blows, no black and blue marks. But now you're in your 20s, you start having black and blue marks. You don't do any more contact sports. Even sex becomes less of a contact sport for a lot of other people. They just stop. I'm tired. I got a headache. You know, enzyme exhaustion. So, if you increase the enzyme levels, guess what starts happening? Give an example. Let's take sports activity. Sprained ankle. You can go to a book written by 3 MDs. It's called Enzymes, the Fountain of Life, by Mielke, Lopez, and Williams. And what will you find is that they treating, like for instance, sprained ankle, which normally will take for a person in their 20s, 30s, about 2 to 3 weeks complete recovery. With high enzyme saturation, systemic enzymes like Karen has here, administered every couple hours, guess what? You recover in 2 days. Do you realize what impact that has in commercial combat sports like football? I mean, when a major star is down for the count for any length of time, the attendance drops radically, a major player. So it's big money. Yet, overall, it's still has not penetrated the sports industry, that kind of level of awareness. Dan O'Brien, a decathlon, a visionary who had the desire to go and attend the Olympic competitions. He was good at international, but never felt good enough, and he wasn't. He couldn't train more than an hour per day. He got into enzyme saturation, blue-green algae, probiotics, 3 biggies, and within a period of 6 weeks he was training now 6 to 8 hours a day. He went to the Atlanta Olympics and came back with gold, beating men who were 10 years younger than him. This is what is possible. Rejuvenation. Don't get the idea that you are old and you're dragging your feet. No, you are old by self-proclaim and your actions. You're just not getting those enzymes into your system. That's just one major component, but it's a very significant one. One of the biomarkers, the first bio, well, I'll give you in terms of levels of overall influence. Oxygenation, which is pretty free. Just start doing yoga postures, pranayama. Do that. Breathing, kundalini breathing, alternate nasal breathing. And you will increase your oxygen level. But your oxygen levels and the red blood cell count is a function of how much consumption you have on a daily basis of green foods. Green foods just jack up. They cause your red blood cell to increase. Not as fast as in the movie cartoons, Popeye the Sailor Man and canned. Oh, that was a fantasy on their part. You know, no, I don't think you're going to get a lot of mileage out of canned spinach. Outside of going into what is called autointoxication, which is post-meal leukocytosis. That means after the meal, a radical increase in white blood cells equivalent to having an infectious condition. Having an infectious condition 300 to 500% higher than when it is in the pre-meal stage. Your body is totally is getting saturated with this enzymeless food. Your body does not have the enzymes to digest it, because not only in the rationing of the proteolytic enzymes that takes place in the early 20s, by the time you hit mid-30s, you start having really, like, according to Dr. Sumner, an enzymologist, he says, by that age time you lost about 95% of your amylase to starch splitting enzymes. You can't digest the starches. And what you have is an epidemic of acid reflux diseases, acidity, burning sensations, and you start dealing with Rolaids, Tums, and all kind of acid reflux pills. But that's not the ultimate answer. So what happens is when you're trying to digest that, your body doesn't have enough enzymes, so the white blood cells, which are really like a little golf carts, micro, nanotechnology size, and they're just roaming around inside of your blood vessels and collecting enzymes, harvesting enzymes all over your body, pulling it away from metabolic function. Oh, that liver don't need it. Those muscles don't need it. I'll take it. I got to bring it over to the digestive action. So, the consequence is the body harvests enough enzymes and you pull off another digestive activity. Quite often not very successfully, but at least to the point where you don't go into autointoxication. Now, most people are intoxicated by the food that they have eaten. One of the biggest long sleep needs is the toxemia generated by our eating habits, by our thoughts, but autointoxication from the food that is not completely metabolized has a radical impact. The starches turn sour if they're not digested, especially when they're combined, like in a pizza. And you go to a grocery store and you shop, or you go along the grocery aisle and look at that cute little pizza. It's been sitting there for 5 years on a shelf, and it's called Tombstone Pizza. I think I'll get some. God, they even tell you what you have. And you think it's cute. I got some Tombstone Pizza. I think I'll share it with my family. So, the combination of starch and acids, whether these red sauces in a pasta, spaghetti you put on, this red sauce makes it indigestible. You had, when you took your classes in chemistry and biology, when you were in high school, you learned that you can't, starches don't digest in an acid environment. They need alkalinity. So they end up really creating habits, creating more and more acidity as it sours, and that acidity is reducing your electrovoltage. And electrovoltage is the second biomarker. First it was oxygen, then the second one was alkalinity, or the electrovoltage potential, because every cell, batteries, nucleus acidic, cytoplasma alkaline, and the difference between the alkalinity acidity creates electrovoltage potential. Now, every time you're consuming all this cooked food, it just creates more acidity. And it keeps withdrawing the alkaline reserves out of your cytoplasma. Why does it keep withdrawing it? Because if you don't neutralize the acid conditions by drinking like Coca-Cola, which is about 10,000 times more acid than the human blood, as well as the sourness of the meal, you would die, because the blood has to be maintained at a slightly alkaline level. Matter of fact, your whole interior of your body has to be maintained at an alkaline load. The alkalinity of blood, the alkalinity of lymphatic, the alkalinity of the intracellular fluids, the alkalinity of cytoplasm. The only place you have acidity is primarily in the nucleus of the cells, and also if you're eating toxic diets, you will be generated also, especially corpses, you will be generating hydrochloric acid to help to neutralize the pathogenic microbes that are totally loaded on that dead piece of steak or that hamburger from your burger place palace of delights. And the body uses also increases action of the pepsin, and it pulls off the digestion. But at what expense? It creates tons of mucus. Stop all dairy products, and for a month, and then after a month have a glass of, no, even half a glass of milk. Your nose will be snotty, your eyes will be drooling, you'll be because now all of a sudden you notice what is the impact. Before you were addicted to that product, and your body was just barely continuously to pile up more and more mucus, congestion in your system, eventually to the point where it's suffocating. And guess what you get? A cold. Cold is an indication that you're about to die from asphyxiation, and your body has a choice. If it has high enough electrovoltage potential, vitality, okay, then it will dump this stuff within a period of 3 to 5 days, unless you take some kind of medication, and get it out of your system through all of the mucus discharge, through your nose, through coughing it up, okay? If you don't, and then as you get older, your electrovoltage diminishes. You don't have the vitality to do the cold thing. So what happens to that snot? It dehydrates and becomes hardened, and it takes up less space inside of your body, and you get cataracts. You get these aches and pains of bronchial, asthmatic conditions. All that mucus that has hardened in your lungs is starting to become a problem. It's tearing up your tissue. Eventually it leads to conditions of, and you'll understand if we have time, on cancer, emphysema, very chronic conditions. Those are high level of degeneration of the cellular environment. So your body is designed in a way to adapt itself, no matter how badly you abuse it, though it's going to cut down your longevity, your vitality, and ability to enjoy life in the ways that in the Book of Jubilee, which is, you can find it on the internet, you can find it in my book, Survival Quotes, from the Essene community, and they talk about a time is coming when once again the children will study the laws and follow the commandments of life, of nature, and we will once again come to a point where there will be no more disease, no more sadness. We talked about sadness yesterday. And no more aging. All shall live in youthful bodies. At the ages of 300, 500, you'll live as long as you feel the need for it to express your dharmic potential, all the wonderful things you want to do on this planet. I watched many years ago a Star Trek episode, and this one had in it the Star Trek team lands on this weird planet, and they find the planet is inhabited by nothing but children, and they wonder, where are the adults? Well, after they spend a bit of time out there, they find out that these kids were 300, 800, 900 years old.
Yeah.
You don't have to. The whole aging. Just imagine how, it's just unfathomable how we managed to survive the whole, even teenage years, the youth, by consuming nothing but poisons. Getting no nutrition outside of the ongoing combating of the toxic stuff we piled in that is being processed by our microbial cultures that can live on practically anything. As you know, in septic systems, you throw in microbes, they'll digest the poop, they'll digest anything you throw in. Well, you have in your body about, even in an unhealthy individual, at least 20 times more bacteria than you have cells in your body. And these are the things that are keeping you alive, in spite of the garbage you keep flushing down your throat. Garbage, death, and yet you are surviving it. They process it. And what do they give you? Like in Oolong and Huxley, a study of the vegan tribe, as an example, in Papua New Guinea. And all this stuff that I'm talking about, it's quoted from my book, Survival in the 21st Century.com. You can go there. Or you can go to Viktoras, Viktoras.com. I just want to let you know where I'm coming from. Cyberspace.
Viktoras.org.
Thank you. Corrections taken. Some Greek fellow took the .com. So, what do we have? The enzymes are so key and instrumental. But where do the enzymes come? Bacteria. Bacteria makes tons of enzymes. You're going to be drinking that Rejulife. It's going to have lots of enzymes, and it's going to make such a difference. Rejulife is a fermentation of the wheat. The capsules is even much higher concentration, and there is no toxicity level. No more than there is a toxicity level for water. But at 5 gallons level of intake per day, you probably are going to drown by the 3rd day or so. So you could overdo the enzymes too by consuming them by the buckets. Of course, you might go broke before that. Ended up going through that kind of level of consumption on a day-to-day basis before it could even have a major impact on your health. It'll have much more impact on your credit card. So, they are your greatest health investment. So the second was out First was oxygen, the second was biomarker was alkalinity, and alkalinity comes from eating alkaline foods, and the third is enzymes. And enzymes have so much dramatic research associated with it because they are such key components as far as piling up garbage inside of your body. You have enough enzymes and you can get through the day. No matter what you ended up consuming. For instance, in reference to cancer, Dr. Gerson, Max Gerson, wrote a book on 50 cases of cancer cured successfully or treated, whatever. You can find Max Gerson on the internet. His book was a classic. Over 50 years ago, he was already doing research with alkaline enzymatic nutrition for the treatment and management of cancer. His research, which is all well documented, he states that every form of cancer is preceded by pancreatic insufficiency and production of enzymes. Not enough enzymes are available. And that leads to a cascadence of internal breakdown. So, enzymes are once again on top of the list of relative importance. If we look at our culture in terms of killers, and it's the food industry, it's the killers, but let's look at the causes that are attributed, okay? Causes. Heart disease, well, right now it's kind of flipped. If they say cancer is the #1 cause of death, and second is the cause of death is cardiovascular diseases, and third, well, by self-admonition, medical intervention. Okay, so that's kind of the story, and that comes right out of, you go to Mercola.com and you can find all of that on the internet. Okay, so #1 killer, cancer. Can it be impacted? Can we understand cancer from an enzymatic point of view? Yes, we can. Because, first of all, as an admonition, Harvard Medical Department did a research that brought out on a standard American diet, the SAD, the SAD American diet, besides giving you sadness, it also gets you into some really terrible conditions. And what they have discovered that it was in Science section of the New York Times, May 23rd, 2002. You can go and find it. Now what they have found is that 100% of the people consuming standard American diet, 100%, they are saturated, means like exaggerated volumes with, guess what? Bad vibes? Yeah. Yes, they're saturated with completely metabolized proteins. And they gave these proteins a name. They twisted, you know? Twisted minds create twisted names. They're twisted because they don't look like they're found in nature, and they don't draw any conclusion. Where the hell is it coming from? How the heck is this? Why are they having all this saturated protein? These twisted proteins. Well, but they say that probably all diseases are caused, all degenerative diseases, and they list about 25 of them, from cancer to heart diseases, are caused by these twisted proteins. So, twisted proteins. Now, I have in my book Survival, which I published over 35 years ago, I spent a lot of time at Harvard Medical Library. Matter of fact, 5 to 10 hours a day while at the same time doing a full-time work supporting the Hippocrates Health Institute with my activities. But every moment I had, I was there doing biological, bio-abstract research. In those days, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have access from your home bases to do search of the medical libraries. I had to go there physically. I had to go through all the files and folders. It was dust and dust. I mean, I'd leave there coughing because it was like four floors below street level that I had to go there. Hardly any oxygen. No, but I did it for you guys. And I found the goodies. But what the Harvard medical study brought out, that all degenerative diseases are created by these twisted proteins, and I found that 85% of the protein are disorganized. In medical research papers were disorganized. They became both twisted, contorted, and screwed up. I like that, screwed up better than twisted. And completely unrecognizable by your own digestive enzyme. They're looking at them and saying, "Who the hell is this?" I haven't seen this in nature for the last 5 billion years. So, you got problems there with these twisted proteins. And you know what these twisted proteins are doing? It says in the article, it's creating inflammatory condition so that your immune system is totally tied up 24/7 trying to get rid of these twisted damn proteins that is screwing up the transport of everything, nutrients. You got a traffic jam of garbage floating down your blood. Now, you got live cell analysis happening, I guess right down there, dark field microscopy. And you can draw your blood, and you can take a look at congestion of the blood. You'll see stickiness of red blood cells and all that kind of stuff. Now, we took individuals consuming traditional diets, and we did live cell analysis. Looks terrible. You know, lots of stickiness, poor transport of nutrients, poor transport of oxygen. Red blood cells were immobile. And we put them on enzymes with meals and in between meals. Had them come back. Told them nothing about diet or changing diet. Had them come back. Had them come back like 5 days later. We checked them again on live cell analysis. Guess what? They had a clean bill of health. Their cells were transporting hardly any stickiness. That's what enzymes will do for you. It'll youth you. It'll detoxify you. And when you get on these Karen's enzymes, take them with the meal, take them in between meals. You can also add systemic enzymes for extra amplification and empowerment of your immune system function, because your immune system, according to Dr. Leskovar, published again in medical journals, shows that the immune system functions are increased by 1,100%. That's an exaggerated high percentage. In terms of activity, that's what the enzymes are doing within 20 minutes after administering orally. And according to the book by Mielke, Lopez, and Williams, like I said, they tried it 200 times the normal level of administration, and they didn't find it toxic levels outside of the bowels were a little looser, but outside of that, no problems. Except you don't take high volumes, or in other words, you don't take the systemic enzymes the in-between meal usage if you are on immune suppressant drugs, and if you are using basically time-release medication, which has a cellulose structure, so that the cellulose will be more rapidly broken down, so the drugs will disintegrate. And then also, if you're a hemophiliac, you wouldn't be using it, because you cannot have more cleansing being created by the enzyme intake. So those are the situations predominantly, and of course, if you have ulcerations or all kind of ulcerations along the intestinal tract, before you go into enzyme saturation in this kind of situation, you get on basically an alkaline diet with green soups, green blended soups, non-fruit oriented, and within a period you'll find that the ulcerations, within a period of few weeks to a month, it'll be totally well. Also, you got to realize most of your ulcerations result what's going on in your head, so you got to sit down, either see a psychiatrist or sit down and start talking to God. Freebie cycle, you know, I mean, tapping your head, you know. Hey, what are you doing? That's stupid. Come on, you're a genius. You know everything. Thank God, thank you, Lord, for giving me life, and be continuously grateful, and just keep on believing in the most positive, absurd future that you could imagine that looks like fun. That's where you're going if you keep doing that. But if you're buying into the reality that you're being taught in your newspapers, all the newspapers, you know, you buy your newspaper. What the hell are you buying? You're buying negative news to get you depressed, so you go out and buy junk food. That's what the newspapers are all about. So you'll end up reading all these commercials to make you feel better. You know? I mean, that's crazy society. You gotta kind of take a little time out. They say until you become strong enough, you won't be able to handle the news. Because it will devastate you. So, enzymes can be used pretty high levels, but with some reservation in the few areas that I mentioned. But the average individual who doesn't have, you know, organ transplant or hemophiliac or ulceration, they can go liberally into it. And I consume liberally. I mean, my own people ask me, how much enzyme should you take? Well, there's two ways of looking. I said, well, you can get someone to test you with what they call muscle testing, or you know, just push the arm down and you get an indication of leverage. I'll do a demo at the end of the presentation. It's called kinesiology. It's a well-established science. There's an excellent book by Dr. Hawkins, Power versus Force, on the subject of basically muscle testing. And you can ask any kind of question about anything, including you can ask, is my husband cheating on me? You can get the answer through kinesiology. You don't have to pay a detective to do that. You can do your detective work. So, the human organism will respond very well to increased enzyme intake by empowering the degenerative conditions to become corrected, because, as I said, the enzymes will help to do what you can do with Walmart's environmentally safe Drano. And you pour it down your sink, and it dissolves all that gawky fat from your frying pans that are sticking to the plumbing and clogged up your sink. And guess what? Enzymes and bacteria cultures. Well, heck, I'm not recommending to consume the environmentally safe Drano. I don't know how good it would be. Might be better than some other meds, but utilize enzymes that are definitely designed for human consumption, and the accumulation of waste that you have inside of your body will start going into solution. It'll start being excreted. Now, coming back to cancer, which we were looking at, appropriateness of enzymes to degenerative diseases, well, cancer, interestingly enough, is being treated and published. You can find it on the internet within medical journals. Dr. Chin Po Kim has done and published five-year follow-up with peer-reviewed studies showed 79% recovery of all forms of cancer, treated solely without lifestyle changes, solely with taking enzymes. Pretty impressive. Now, why should you have such a wonderful response to cancer? Well, what you have, when you have indigested proteins coming into circulation, guess what they do? They do some nasties. And the nasties is that in Science News, 1972, John Gaynor showed that it reduces the oxygen transport by 60%. You cannot live on a 60% oxygen reduction. Your whole metabolism, all those 10 to the 10 followed by 27 0, 37 zeros, chemical reactions, metabolic reaction, not only are they enzyme executed, but they are oxygen dependent. No oxygen, no metabolic activity. So you need that oxygen to carry out life. In other words, life process is being threatened. Dr. Alexis Carrel, a Nobel Prize recipient, in his book, Man the Unknown, he says, the human organism adapts itself to all forms of stress by innovating techniques within the body, which were really part of the design of this organism, to adapt itself to all these stresses at the expense of reduced longevity and vitality, reduction of, instead of dying immediately, it has a reduction of vitality and longevity. But it doesn't die immediately from what? Asphyxiation. Inadequate amount of oxygen. That's what you would die. And basically how the cancer cells function, under the 60% reduction, Dr. Otto Warburger, a twice Nobel winner in 1936, the ultimate cause of cancer, he showed by taking normal reproductive cells from your body, from a tissue, putting it on a Petri nutritional dish, and then putting it in a glass dome, and then insulating it from the outside world, and proceeding to withdraw oxygen from this. Within a period of 2 days, the oxygen, when the oxygen level dropped by 30%, the cells either died or mutated to cancer cells. Now, so inadequate oxygen causes cells, normal cells, to mutate to cancer cells. Okay, so we see the mechanism. And cancer, why would, what's the big deal? Why should the body be making cancer cells? What does it do? Everything that happens in your body is intended to enhance survival of your organism. So how is cancer cells good for you? What they do is they act like little vacuum cleaners. They roam around your body and are absorbing oxygen 20 times faster than normal cells of your body. And they act like little vacuum sacs getting filled up with all this protein, and they dump the sac into some isolated area of your body where nothing too exciting is happening, like, you know, life processes are not going on there that too much, and it just keeps piling up. It might be in the colon, it might be in your lungs, it might be in your lymphatic system. And for about 20 years, you're piling up all these garbage sacks of cancer cells. And your body's still continuing to strive. Because if it didn't have this mechanism, you would have died a long time ago. Now, in comes, as I said, high enzymes. High enzymes activate the immune system. The immune system aggressively starts attacking the cancer cells that are there, digesting them, and either recycling the protein by having it digested, if it can, otherwise excreting it out of the system. So the cancer cells serve a very important function. And believe it or not, right now, according to like Dr. Williams, head of a medical school, he says everybody's got tens of thousands of cancer cells in their body. It's part of actually part of your immune system. And let me just show you what. They only are created as long as there's a need for it within your body. Just like white blood cells levels are created as long as and the exaggerated volume, as long as there's a need for the function of continuously addressing the need of higher enzymes than is available within the bloodstream, so that the white blood cells go harvesting. And what happens, for instance, if you are looking at an exaggerated situation, like we have an exaggerated situation of, instead of having a million cancer cells, which is no big deal in your body, they're nothing even worth noticing. But if you've got a trillion number of cancer cells, they're interfering with your normal metabolic processes, and that's when something is wrong with you, and you go over to the doctor, and they say, oh, you got cancer cells. What is interesting is, you get diagnosed, you go to an oncologist, says you got cancer, then you go over to another general, instead of a general practitioner for a second opinion, you go to a cardiologist, and the cardiologist says, oh, you got compromised cardiovascular system. So who do you decide who's going to do cut? Well, Dr. Schwartz showed that if you have cancer, you got also compromised cardiovascular disease, because the cause is the same. Both are representing an attempt on the part of the body to adjust to the stressful environment, as you will hear in my next segment of the dissertation. But now, the cancer cells, when they become exaggerated, they're a problem. Now, the white blood cells, oh, you think of, oh, that's natural and normal. Well, okay. But what starts happening is you get too many white blood cells. What happens then? You got a traffic jam in your bloodstream. You got a traffic jam in your immune system. You start moving, and nutrients are not developed, and you start moving into what is called wasting disease or leukemia. When you got too many white blood cells, they call it leukemia. Now, at one point, white blood cells were good for you, then you got too many of them, it's nasty stuff. Now the question is, why there's too many white blood cells all of a sudden? Well, Dr. Kolakowski published it first in Lancet and then in Polish Medical Journal in 1972. And this is all in survival. Treatment of infantile leukemia successfully already in 72 with low protein alkaline diet. And then they let them go back to eating traditional foods, what they were accustomed to. They got leukemia again. They put them again on that same nutritional program. The leukemia was gone. They repeated it half a dozen times. And he said, the only reason I didn't have 100% success, I haven't come up with an optimal nutritional program. And that is true, because he was not working with an enzymatic program. If you were working with an enzymatic, he would have had 100%. So the white blood cells serve a very important function. Cancer cells serve a very important function. They help you to live through the asphyxiation associated with the twisted, incompletely metabolized protein. And in the list of degenerative diseases that was mentioned by the Harvard Medical University, cancer was one of them listed. So cancer, now, by putting individuals, remember, what we get is much closer to 100% recovery at Hippocrates Health Institute. Matter of fact, fourth stage breast cancer is considered incurable by the medical doctors, and they call it a genetic disease. This year, we are working with the University of California medical doctors, which will be publishing a paper showing 5-month cure of fourth stage breast cancer with the Hippocrates enzymatic saturation and the nutritional program that we're using. We get much closer to 100% recovery. I thought there are people who don't recover. They either come extremely late in the stage, or as Dr. John Christopher said, there are a lot of people, there's no incurable diseases, but there are a lot of incurable personalities. Sometimes you just have had enough of life. Because